good morning once again. We got things reset a little bit there. We're going to launch right back in. I was having a problem updating titles, and I apologize for that. Trying to make this, as I said in the previous video, as easy as possible, or else I won't do it. I've got way too much on my plate right now. I am attending the Center for Arizona Policy meeting on this coming Tuesday, featuring Ryan T. Anderson of the Heritage Foundation. I will be attending that event as press corps for barbedwire.com. I'll also be attending the Dinesh D'Souza Freedom Summit this coming Saturday, also as press. Hopefully doing an exclusive interview with Dinesh on that. Writing for Barbed Wire, writing for iPatriot, writing for my own website. Still working the day job. So unfortunately, the production quality of my YouTube videos, which I've been struggling with anyway, they're very time consuming. I mean, what you guys watch on YouTube that makes you chuckle for 5 minutes or 10 minutes is hours of work for the people that put it together. And unfortunately, I just don't have the time. Maybe one of these days, Brother Cornelius, my sometimes producer, will be able to help me out with the post-production stuff and can splice some videos and news clips together for me. I just don't have the time for the production quality of the YouTube videos that there needs to be. So I need to concentrate on reading, writing, and speaking, and let the videos be what they are. So that's why you're seeing a scaled-down version of the show here. I mean, I've got the face cam, I've got the new hand cam, woo, which will be cool when I start playing the guitar a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to concentrate on staying connected with you guys, letting you know what's going on in my life here. I've got a couple other writing opportunities on the table. I'm going to start working on a book. Town Hall is in the offing. WorldNet Daily is in the offing. There are opportunities that don't come very often, so I'm going to have to focus on that, and the videos are just going to be what they are, my friends, until I have some time, or until I get a large donation where I can take a couple of weeks off to work on the video. Thus far, everything I'm doing is self-produced. I've created a majority of the art, other than the things that are not copyrighted, you know, free use, royalty free. I've done the audio mixing, plus the show, plus the writing. Everything that's said has to be written. Everything that you see has to be created. And thus far, other than help from Mr. Cornelius with the setting up of the broadcast software, I've done it all myself. So I can do it. I just don't have the time, and I don't have the finances to take the time. As they say, time is money. So until then, until the show is self-supportive, I'm going to have to focus on writing, and the videos are going to unfortunately suffer. There's nothing I can do about that. It is what it is. If you guys appreciate the content, go ahead and paypal.me/ChrisMillsCCN. You can message me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Hit me up if you want to help me. If you want to help support the program and buy me a couple of days off to dial in the things I need to dial in, I won't say no. Well, let's jump into a quick deep state update here. This is actually from a little while ago. This is Rush Limbaugh talking about the deep state 7 months ago, as we're finding out what James Clapper did know, what James Comey knew, what all of these deep state guys who sat before the Senate committee and said they didn't know anything about Trump being wiretapped. Well, Trump was right. He was being wiretapped by the Obama administration, and all the deep state snakes are still lying about it. Let's hear what Rush had to say about it back in February. Audio courtesy of Daily Rushbo on YouTube. Where is my audio? Why is it not working?
When it comes to the politics of domestic support and the numbers that Trump would need to resist any of these efforts that are mounting up to destroy him. And when it comes to the politics of getting rid of Donald Trump, the Brexit crowd that supports him is not going to matter to the Democrats and Republicans in this country that might someday make a move on Trump. It's the 63 million. And this is something, you know what? It is assumed those 63 million, if Trump goes, they're just going to sit home and go, let me tell you, this 63 million is a different group of people. And they're not just going to sit idly by and watch the man they elected be shoved out of office. I'm just warning you people out there in the deep state, shadow government, you're not dealing with who you think you're dealing with. What a day we are going to have here. This is absolutely incredible what we have learned today. Not only what we learned about Trump actually being wiretapped. He was wiretapped, and I knew it. We're going to go back to the audio soundbites. We're going to replay what I said.
This is Rush Limbaugh continuing about the deep state. This is just a couple of days ago.
After Trump made the allegation, when the media poo-pooed it, when everybody called him insane, when everybody told him he didn't know what he was talking about, when it was dangerous, when everybody said this is typical of having an outsider doesn't know what he's doing, it turns out that the Obama administration and James Comey's FBI wiretapped the head of Trump's campaign, Paul Manafort, including conversations Manafort had with Trump. We also know the New York Times has a story today that there was a raid on Manafort's home not long ago. Pre-dawn, the FBI picked the lock at Manafort's home while he was at home in bed and stormed in the front door and demanded computer files and computers and documents and walked out of there. This is the result of the Mueller investigation. And there are threats now. They're trying to get Mueller to flip and other people by threatening to indict him. And we now know there was a wiretap that James Comey poo-pooed and laughed at during congressional testimony. You remember when Trump said his wires were being tapped at Trump Tower and they didn't find anything. And the establishment smirked and the establishment snickered. And they all started laughing and said, Trump, this is typical. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's insane. He's shooting from the hip. It turns out that all of that was correct.
I'm dropping you guys on Periscope.
This is much worse than Watergate,
I don't have
folks.
The power.
That was a third-rate burglary that went awry. Trump was called a liar. He was mocked for tweeting about Trump Tower being wiretapped. David Gergen, you'll hear on the Soundbites today, practically chokes when confronted with the news that Trump was right and doesn't quite know what to say about it. But I'll tell you, folks, in many ways, it's worse than Watergate, and it's still going on, even with Trump in the White House.
If you can't,
Richard Nixon was accused of spying on the...
If I can't keep Periscope connected. I'm trying to do both at the same time. I also got Twitter going, or Twitch going. Maybe I should disconnect Twitch.
DNC, but Nixon never ordered any such spying. In fact, he didn't know anything about it. He was accused of using the IRS against his political opponents, but he never did. We know for a fact that Obama did both of these things, use the IRS against political opponents, and probably more. There's no outrage in the media on this. They think it's great that Manafort's lock was picked while he was on. The New York Times reports this as though it's something that happens every day. Yep, the FBI showed up. They picked the lock of Manafort's front.
Sorry, guys, having to restart the software there. I'm shutting down Twitch. Apparently, I can't stream with quality to three different platforms. So we're gonna do Periscope and YouTube. Start the stream up again. Sorry.
Obama did both of these things, use the IRS against political opponents, and probably more. There's no outrage in the media on this. They think it's great that Manafort's lock was picked while he was on. The New York Times reports this as though it's something that happens every day. Yep, the FBI showed up. They picked the lock of Manafort's front door in Virginia and walked in and woke him up along with his family and then started demanding things and taking things. So now we know that not only Obama and Comey's FBI were wiretapping Trump Tower, where Manafort has lived since 2006, although it was his Virginia home where they showed up and picked the lock. That was a no-knock search, Manafort's house.
So if Donald Trump says that Obama wiretapped Trump Tower, and we know that the Obama administration, including the DOJ and the FBI, had requested FISA warrants to wiretap Paul Manafort, who had a residence in Trump Tower, doesn't that make it true that Obama wiretapped Trump Tower? It absolutely does.
Picked the lock in his house to seize records while he was asleep in the bedroom. That used to happen in other countries, that kind of thing here. Maybe it happens against drug lords, that we're not talking about drug cartels or anything here. So we have a whole stack of that, and we're going to relive all the stories from the smart aleck drive-by media, assuring everybody that Trump was off his rocker, that nobody cared enough about Trump to be wiretapping anything he was doing. I don't care whether they had a warrant for the wire. That's not the point. I don't care if they think they had a legitimate case against Manafort. The fact is, Manafort's phone calls were tapped. He talked to Trump. Trump said he was tapped, and they made a mockery of him. And it turns out this is not the first instance of this where Trump has made an allegation that people think are off the wall, and it turns out to be true. So now we know, ladies and gentlemen, that Obama and James Comey's FBI wiretapped the head of a political campaign. And so this is bigger than Watergate. The phone lines and other aspects of life that were wiretapped and surveilled were that of Paul Manafort, the first campaign manager for Donald Trump. Donald Trump said that his wires were being tapped at Trump Tower. The media laughed. The media chortled. The Democrat Party said he's insane. He's unfit. You see, we told you all along the guy is not fit. He's too dangerous. He's not grounded in reality. They mocked Trump. They made fun of Trump. No such thing could happen here in the United States. And yet it was happening by their own President Obama. Obama's administration surveilled more Americans than any previous administration in this country. All under the guise of surveilling foreign combatants and potential terrorists. That's how they got Mike Flynn, and with
What the Democrats don't realize, well, never mind. The government officials probably realize that if they dig far enough, they're going to uncover Clinton connections, which is already starting to come out with Comey. They're going to find out that this whole thing was set up to keep Trump from winning. It's actually the Democrats that have the connections to the Republicans, or to the Russians, not the Republicans, although there probably are some in there that have connections as well. But they don't seem to realize that the further they dig into Trump Russia, the more they're exposing Obama's crimes. We're going to eventually get to those emails, and we're going to eventually get them all pried wide open, and we're going to find out exactly what Hillary and Obama knew. And I think the left is just hoping they can manufacture something to get Trump impeached before that news comes out.
Manafort, ladies and gentlemen, what actually happened was that the FBI showed up before dawn at his home in Virginia and picked the lock and woke the family up, and began taking computers, making copies of files, lifting entire pieces of equipment, taking it outside the house, all in an attempt to intimidate Manafort, to get him to flip maybe on Trump and Russian collusion. The New York Times is cheering this. Listen to this, the headline: with a picked lock and a threatened indictment, Mueller's inquiry sets a tone. Paul J. Manafort was in bed early one morning in July when federal agents bearing a search warrant picked the lock on his front door and raided his home, as though this happens routinely. The New York Times is not outraged. They're not shocked. They're not appalled. They would be if it had been David Axelrod running the Obama campaign, or whoever it was running Hillary's campaign. Federal agents took binders stuffed with documents, copied his computer files, looking for evidence that Manafort set up secret offshore bank accounts. They even photographed the expensive suits in his office, in his closet. If only Hillary had gotten this kind of investigation from the FBI. The special counsel, Robert Mueller, then followed the House search with a warning. His prosecutors told Manafort they planned to indict him. This according to two anonymous people close to the investigation. The moves against Manafort are just a glimpse of the aggressive tactics used by Mueller and his team in the 4 months since taking over the investigation into Russia, dispensing with the plodding pace typical of many white-collar investigations. White-collar investigate? What? Are there blue-collar investigations? What's the difference, Mr. Snerdley? What's a blue-collar investigation? Calling this dispensing with the plodding pace of typical white-collar investigations. Mueller's team has used what some describe as shock and awe tactics to intimidate witnesses. What's a blue-collar investigation? See, it's all about intimidation here. It's not a search for truth. It's not a search for justice. They're looking for a process crime, somebody lying to investigators, or they're looking to flip somebody. They want somebody to admit that, yeah, Trump was colluding with Putin. There's just somebody to admit it. Just take them there. Even if they lie, just take them there. The special counsel even took the unusual step of obtaining a subpoena for one of Manafort's former lawyers, claiming an exception to attorney-client privilege. And so now the stories are all in. Exclusive U.S. government wiretapped former Trump campaign. This is CNN. Two of these sources cautioned the evidence is not conclusive, meaning the evidence that they might have procured after storming Manafort's house. What it all means is that we know that the Obama FBI wiretapped the head of a political campaign. So the media was right. They were claiming that what Trump was doing and colluding with Russia was bigger than Watergate. It turns out this is bigger than Watergate. What the government's doing is bigger than Watergate. Nixon never did any of this. He may have dreamed.
Way bigger than Watergate. 18 minutes of audio tape was enough for Nixon. 33,000 emails was not enough for Hillary Clinton.
Dreamed about it, and he may have gotten drunk and talked to people, but he never did this. Nixon never actually used the IRS to penalize enemies, but Obama did. Ever heard of Lois Lerner? I don't know if we know for a fact in the history of this country has a sitting president gone so far as to use the FBI to defeat a political opponent. Do we know that? I mean, it may have happened, but I don't know that we know about it. Going back to the 2017, no, this is 2016 archives at CNN, Donald Trump flat out lied about Trump Tower wiretapping by Chris Cillizza. On a sleepy Saturday morning back in March, Donald Trump dropped this bombshell on the political world. Terrible. Just found out Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. Cillizza writes, turns out he was lying. That's a conclusion of the Justice Department in a court filing. Both FBI and National Security Division confirmed they have no records related to wiretaps, as described by Trump's tweets on March 4th of 2017. Manafort has lived in Trump Tower since 2006. Trump Tower is, well, they might have, that's not where the pre-dawn raid took place, but they might have, well, they had to. They had to tap the towers and the phones in Manafort's homes, and he's got one. Trump was right. Trump knew all along he was being wiretapped, probably because Manafort knew. But as recently as September 5th, this is September 19th, 14 days ago, Chris Cillizza, Donald Trump just flat out lied about Trump Tower wiretapping. And then from Breitbart, James Comey tried to discredit Trump's wiretapping assertions that now have proved true. You know, Comey was lying about this under oath during one of his days of testimony on Capitol Hill. And, Director Comey, are you familiar with the allegation that the FBI maybe had wiretapped Trump Tower? And Comey, yeah, I've heard a lot of things in my day, Senator, but I can unequivocally say that I'm totally unaware of any orders wiretap Trump Tower. They laughed at Trump. They mocked him. They joked. They made fun. And now the New York Times, with a picked lock and a threatened indictment, Mueller's inquiry sets a tone. So let's go to the audio sound bites. I want to start here with what I said back in March. Trump's tweets were March the 4th, where he said that his wires had been tapped. It isn't unreasonable at all for Donald Trump to suspect that he's being tapped, that his aides are being tapped, that Trump Tower. We know that there were 2 FISA warrants. I think part of what President Trump is doing by tweeting out on Saturday that he believes the Obama administration's wiretapping him, I think he's not just tweeting to the American public and tweeting to the news media. I think Trump confounds these people because he's always a step or two ahead. Trump plays the long game. And I think in addition to whatever else these tweets are intended to accomplish, it's also a direct line to the Democrat Party and Obama and members of the Obama administration that Trump is signaling you don't face the usual feckless bunch of opponents who never fight you back. You've got me here, and if you're going to start lying about me, and if you're going to keep lying about me, I'm not going to sit here and take it. This is during the time we're talking about a silent coup, an effort to bring down the president, with all of these surveillance tactics being used and the deep state leaks to the media about collusion when there was never a shred of evidence. Well, all this time, James Comey knew that Trump was not even a target. James Comey had told Trump 3 different times he was not a suspect and not a target, but he wouldn't make it public. He told members of Congress during the committee testimony that Trump was not a target. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi knew it, and yet they're on television every day alleging that Trump colluded with the Russians or Trump's campaign, and they, despite that, knew that he was not a target. It was in the heated stages of the focused effort to remove Donald Trump, the days of us describing a silent coup and any number of other ways to characterize what was going on. So last night, Anderson Cooper 360 spoke with David Rodham Gergen about the New York Times report that federal agents wiretapped Manafort.
That is it for this morning, my friends. Make sure to hit Streamlabs to support the show. PayPal.me/ChrisMillsCCN. I will be reporting live this coming week from the Center for Arizona Policy event featuring Ryan T. Anderson, and later next week on Saturday night from the Dinesh D'Souza Freedom Summit. I will be backstage with the Rockstar Press Pass Thanks to Matt Barber and barbedwire.com. Make sure to check out my column at barbedwire.com. ChrisMillshow.com, ChristianConservatives.net, of which I am the founder, iPatriot.com. Look soon for columns at Barbedwire, or already on Barbedwire, Town Hall, WorldNet Daily, and some other irons I have in the fire. I appreciate you guys. Remember, progressivism is spiritual wickedness, and I will see you later.